just all about the story. What story are you telling? Just because you have news to tell doesn't mean that there's going to be a reporter who's going to care at all about what you want to talk about. Your CEO's priority is of no concern to a reporter if there's no story there. So that's a huge universal. No matter what industry you're in, there has to be an angle there. There has to be news there. There has to be relevancy there. There has to be a story there. It can't just be a news item.
Some guests make you work for the conversation. Sarah Kissko Hersh is not one of those guests. From the moment we hit record, she took off. Gift of gab in full flight. Stories from Indiana to New York to Chicago. Lessons from good managers, bad managers, and managers who probably shouldn't be managers. Why PR is both misunderstood and beautifully simple, and why constraints often make the best ideas. I'm your host, Justin Ahrens, and welcome to Design Of. Sarah is the founder of Type A communications and leadership consultancy outside New York City. She helps people get unstuck, say what they really mean, and manage with more clarity and care. This episode is smart, funny, and refreshingly honest. Mostly because Sarah, she just can't help herself. She tells the truth, even when it's messy. And she reminds us that great communication is less about perfect words and more about the person behind them. Settle in. You're about to meet someone who can talk circles around both of us and somehow make you feel understood along the way.
I'm only going to talk this up as like my favorite episode of the year.
You said all the girls.
I do. I do. No, I'm just kidding. Sarah, thank you for being on Design Of. This is long overdue, my friend. You should actually be fairly upset at me that this is the first time we're on a show together.
Yeah, I am, believe me. Just beginning my list of grievances here.
Okay, so just throw them out now and then when they just pop up into your brain. That would be great. And where are you in the world these days?
I am in Maplewood, New Jersey, which is about 20 minutes outside of New York City. In fact, I can see, now that the leaves are getting down, the Empire State Building from one of the windows in my house.
Wow.
It's a far view, but yeah, I can see it. I know. That was a big moment for me when we moved to this house and I realized I could see that. Having grown up in Indiana, I didn't think that'd be something I'd ever really say. But Indiana is really not that far from New York, so I work from home now full time, but I have such quick access to the city, so I'm there a lot and it's great.
So we met when you were in Chicago.
Yes.
And so where did you grow up in Indiana?
I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is the second largest city in Indiana.
Of course.
I lived there until I went to school in Ohio, and then I moved east. I was in Chicago for a little bit, and back to New York.
Working in Chicago on the projects we got to work on together. Highlight of the career. What level is that for you in your career?
I've been chasing that high ever since.
You're so sweet and full of it.
On those projects.
We did.
I love that we're still in touch.
I know. You've worked all over the map. Agencies, and I think architecture, travel, luxury. What haven't you done? So when did you first know communications, or is that what you would call it, was your lane?
I think I would probably call it that. An interesting thing about this field is ultimately we are communicators, but we have the hardest time describing what it is that we do. And nobody can agree on whether it's communications or PR or marketing communications. I mean, there are different facets of this field, but you could say legitimately that you're in PR. And you could be in a room of people who also say they're in PR, but we do 10 different types of work, and we're all right. We're all in PR, but it's not a narrow lane in this field, which is one of the things that I like about it so much. But yeah, I started out, I think it was college when I was looking for a major, and I started hearing about PR. Serendipitously, I was in one of the few schools, Miami of Ohio. So I studied PR there, and yeah, I am one of the few people I know who's actually doing something in the area that I studied in college. But there was a PR major there, but naturally, I didn't get into PR right away. I had a brief stint in retail. Macy's was interviewing at Miami, and I thought being a fashion buyer sounded like a really interesting job. And so I interviewed there. It was my second job interview. I got the job. It was in New York. I really wanted to move to New York, so I took it. And it turned out to not be the job of my dreams.
What? It wasn't glamorous?
No, not.
Please tell me that you you were like the socks buyer. You bought socks.
I was the assistant women's shoe buyer, which was pretty exciting. I was in fashion jewelry, and I was in another area.
Okay, that doesn't sound lame. Shoes and jewelry are pretty wonderful.
It was a really interesting job, I think, at a higher level, but at the entry level, it's a lot of spreadsheets. It's a lot of manual labor. It was hard, but I think that was really where I realized that wasn't where my heart was. It's a lot of data analysis. It's a ton of data analysis. It's not as creative as one might think, especially at that level. And I remember what happened was Macy's was introducing, when I was working in women's shoes, Macy's was introducing this program where there was going to be a select number of shoes that had a broad appeal. Shoes like black heels, black flats, shoes that a lot of women in a lot of different price points and a lot of different regions would need. Key items, but not necessarily like high fashion shoes, that were going to be available in all sizes and all widths. And so if you needed just like a reliable pair of shoes, you didn't have to worry that Macy's wasn't going to have your size, because Macy's was committed to carrying all these shoes and all these styles. And it was a really great idea. And I thought it was a really interesting differentiator, but it fell flat because nobody knew about it. And I was thinking, like, we should really be marketing this. We should be doing a lot of PR for this. We should be doing a lot of interviews here. I think this idea really has some legs. And the fact that these shoes aren't flying off the shelves isn't because it's not a great concept, because it's not really being marketed very well. And then I started to realize, I think I'm just in the wrong story. I was having a really hard time finding my footing at this job. And I thought maybe it's a professional life. Again, this is my first job out of school. I moved from the Midwest to New York City. There was a ton of adjustment. But I think that was when I realized, no, I think that is really what I want to be doing, and I should find a way to get back to it. Long story short, I moved to Chicago so I could start entry level and maybe be able to afford life still, which I didn't think I could do if I stayed in New York. And that's when I restarted my PR career. And that was shortly before I met you.
Yeah, that's great. You know what I love so far about this interview is I don't have to ask many questions. So
the gab.
So what were you like early in your career?
I was very ambitious, very curious, very hungry. And I think especially because in my mind, I was starting off a little bit behind my peers because I had spent 2 years in retail. It was really important to me to catch up with people who had been in my same pledge class, so to speak, or had graduated college at the same time. I did not want to be 2 years behind. So I worked at a really small agency because I felt like at a larger agency, I was going to have to work my way up the ranks and pay my dues and be beholden to the hierarchy there and the like promotional paths there. And I thought at a small firm, I can really hit the ground running. I can wear a lot of hats. I can do a lot of things. And luckily I worked for somebody, Mary Beth Burkhoff, who I'm still in touch with.
Oh, Mary Beth.
Yeah, who let me do that. And she just, if I had an idea, she let me run with it. And I'm sure there was a lot that I didn't said that really probably I got a little too big for my britches or drove her crazy. But I think she also really appreciated my energy and ambition and drive and creativity and ideas. So she was great. And that was just what I needed.
So were you more type A then or now?
I think I was more type A then for sure. I think that I'm still very much type A. I named my company type A, but I like things to be, I'm very ambitious. I have really high standards for myself. I like things to be a certain way. I like things to have a flow. Not to say that I'm like always defaulting to process, but I like there to be a little structure to things. I like a schedule.
Who doesn't like a good schedule? Some people don't. You've said like you grew up loving stories and connection. And so I'm curious, who first showed you what great communication feels like?
Probably, honestly, people who were showing me what it doesn't feel like. I think that's often the way that you don't always learn from great examples. We don't always have the luxury of that, but that's okay. I think that you can learn from a lot of things. And I've learned a lot from bad managers. I've learned a lot from bad communicators. I've learned a lot from campaigns that have really failed. And I think sometimes that's the only way that you can pick yourself up after something that doesn't work very well, is at least just realize it. At least you learned something, or you're not going to make that mistake again. And I know I didn't invent that concept, but I do think it's incredibly true that you learn a lot more from the things that didn't break your way than the things that do, because you think you're amazing and you did everything right. And that's never the case either. But I think good communicators are not only people who have a lot of verbal dexterity, and a great turn of phrase and a lot of comfort being really agile with words and descriptions and economy of phrasing also. But I think people who can convey things in a really simple way. I really love simple, scrappy ideas. I think things that are just really straightforward and clear are still so appealing to me. So much more so than anything really complex or involved, which is why sometimes I think that the things that I've been most proud of are the ideas that have been like the scrappiest and on a shoestring budget, because sometimes I think those constraints can invite a lot of creativity too. There was a really interesting thing on YouTube. You can find it if you haven't seen it. Jack White of the White Stripes, it was years ago. I don't know how I stumbled upon it, but he was talking a lot about how he tries to create constraints in his creativity and in his life or in his creative endeavors rather, to inspire more innovation and more creativity, because you can often, if you have, as he says, if you've got all the colors in the palette to paint with, your art's a lot less interesting than if you limit yourself to something through one way or another. He talks about having a limited amount of instruments that he has access to, or he uses really somewhat broken down primitive instruments compared to the technology that's out there, because he likes to limit himself to try to see what kind of creativity can come from that versus just having everything available to you all of the time.
Opportunity and telling yourself, oh, you got all the time in the world, all the money in the world, you got all the colors in the palette you want, anything you want. I mean, that just kills creativity. On stage, I'm using the same guitars on stage that I used 10 years ago, and I like to do things to make it really hard on myself. Like, for example, I don't have, like, if I drop a pick, to get another pick, I've got to go all the way to the back of the stage to get another one. I don't have picks all taped to my microphone stand.
And I find that the case too. Sometimes when you have a huge budget for a project, it's a lot harder to be scrappy and creative because it feels like, what can't we do?
Yeah. I think for me, that's the brands I love the most. The ones that are just so authentically true. And in fact, they don't have to say much and I feel something.
Yeah.
That makes me excited. So you've built your career working at a variety of different agencies before starting Type A. So what made you want to create something on your own?
I felt like I was at the point in my career where I had done a lot of the things that I'd set out to do. And I was thinking about what was left for me. And I felt like I had, not that I'm that old, but I just felt like I had one really big job left in me. And I wanted to figure out kind of what I could do with it. And I hadn't ever been out on my own before. And largely that was by design. Honestly, I never thought I would be doing this. If you would have talked to me 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, I would have said not a chance in the world would I go out on my own. I like working for the man. I like predictable income, like benefits. I like being able to take vacations, knowing that like a capable team is keeping the fire going and I don't have to be involved in everything. But there's something about this that I find really exciting. And also right now at this point in my life, my kids are in high school. A lot of my friends' kids are in high school. And I find my friends are doing maybe one or two, maybe three different paths. Some of my friends are just looking to ride off into the sunset a little bit and just autopilot. They've been working really hard. They've done incredible things in their career, and they feel like they're just going to kind of keep it going until they can retire and then quiet down a little bit. And some of my friends are like, this is amazing. My kids don't need me quite as much. I have a lot more free time than I did. And I really want to see where else I can take this. And I think that's where I am right now, is just feeling really excited about learning so many new things, because there's a lot, especially when your kids are like at peak tech savviness and peak pop culture interest level, really behind and really outdated fast, which is a trip because you're used to introducing your kids to everything in the world and explaining to them how things work. And suddenly they're like, Mom, that's not what you mean with, you're not meaning what you think you're meaning when you say that word anymore. Oh, teach me, tell me. Thank you. And so I think that it's really exciting to be learning more and learning so much about the technology that's available, not only for running a business and entrepreneurs, but communication and everything. I am just learning something new all of the time. And I don't know, for the last couple years, I definitely felt like I was doing a lot of interesting, exciting things, and I was putting in a lot of effort for my clients, but I don't know that I was learning as many new things as I am every single day now, which is humbling, but also energizing.
You make it look easy and engaging. Bravo. How many, remind me, you have 2 kids?
I have 2 kids. Yes, they're twins. They're sophomores in high school.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And are your musical tastes similar?
Good question. I would say more similar than not. And especially as they start to look back a little bit at music. And what really blows my mind, because they listen to so much of their music on headphones, I'm shocked sometimes a song will come on in the car or something and I'll know the words and they'll know the words. And I'm not surprised because it's a great song and I think my kids have good musical taste. But I didn't know they knew that song. I didn't know they knew those lyrics. And maybe it's because it's on a show that they're watching on their own. And we're not like sitting down as a family watching everything together anymore. Or again, they listen to it in their headphones. And I'm like, look, Stevie Nicks over here.
Oh, that's exciting.
But really fun. Yeah, I like that. If I still had a CD collection. Hey, do you still have your old
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious that you asked me that.
Doing with them?
I don't know if I ever told you this, but I was a DJ in college. And not really, I basically just played music at our parties, but I had hundreds and hundreds of CDs. And my roommate from Indiana, he was from Terre Haute, Indiana. And in Terre Haute was the BMG like superstore. You could go there and there was a couple days a year you'd go there. I'm not exaggerating. For $100, you could walk out with like hundreds of CDs. It was insane. Because that was, remember when you you'd sign up and you get 20 CDs for $1. Yeah. And so we did that. And then I might have sent a couple of those in with a fake name to get more CDs, but
the truth comes out.
Don't tell anyone. So what's behind the name Type A? Is it a badge, a wink, a reminder?
It's actually become somewhat of a high bar because I realize once you put Type A in the name of your company, you can't send out a proposal with a typo in it, for sure. You shouldn't be doing that anyway.
You can. It's just not going to help.
Yeah, but it's off brand. It's off.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to name a company because you need to find a URL that's available. You need to find an LLC name that hasn't already been taken in your state. So it wasn't when I knew that I was going to be doing this, it wasn't like, and Type A will be the name. But I wanted something that wasn't my name. And I wanted something that wasn't too cheeky or too obscure or something. Most importantly, the last company that I worked for had a lot of letters in it that if you're saying something over the phone or it was an invented word. And so you'd have to spell it for people all the time. And then people were always asking, oh, what does that mean? And everybody had a different answer for it. So I wanted something that was going to, like when I said it, people weren't going to be unfamiliar with the term or think I was saying something that rhymed with it, and something that was a bit self-explanatory and something that felt personal to me but wasn't like cutesy. And so that's where I landed. And I think it describes the high standard that I have for myself and the high standard that I have for the work output, and also attention to detail and a sense of driving and striving, which I think does encapsulate a lot of my personality, particularly my professional personality. So that's really where that came from. And it's hard to name a company.
Yeah.
But I so far, no regrets.
Yeah. I named Rural 29 so people would ask what it meant.
Yeah.
But even when I said it right there, sometimes it sounds like I'm saying rural.
Rural Journey. You ever watch
29, like I'm out in the sticks somewhere. Yeah, I get it. All parts of it are great. So you've talked in the past about getting teams unstuck. And what does stuck usually look like? And how do you help shift it?
I think a lot of times teams are stuck because they lack leadership and clear direction. I think a lot of what I've observed happened during, can I make it through the day without invoking COVID or hearing someone else invoke COVID? So far, not yet.
Some days it feels like I don't hear it, but
maybe, hopefully. Yeah. But today's not the day, my friend, because I'm about to bring it up again. But I feel like one of the things that happened when people started working remotely during COVID, and let's be honest, like everybody was scared and uncertain and doing something new every day and just trying to keep the lights on and the train on the track, trying to mask their own sense of panic professionally or personally. It was a really hard time for a lot of people. But what the reality is that there were a lot of young people who were starting working for the first time and maybe didn't have the best managers in their life. Maybe they were great managers, but managers who weren't really at the peak of their management performance. And that's very excusable and very understandable. But now that those entry-level people are mid-level managers and starting to manage people, I don't think that they have the best schema and examples of ideal management style to be able to model. And that's certainly not unique to COVID. That was happening even before COVID too,
Right.
the crappy managers out there. But what I find really interesting to me is, especially in the PR agency world, and I know this isn't unique to this world, but you start out doing the work. You're doing PR work. You're in the trenches. You're cranking it out. You're pitching, you're writing, you're brokering partnerships, you're creating plans. And then the more senior you become, you suddenly need to become a manager. But very few people really tell you how to do that. Maybe you have a one-day session or something like that, or an hour primer as you get promoted. But it's just, okay, kiddo, good luck out there. Be a good manager, because if you're
You'll figure it out.
put it next year, yeah. And I also think then as you then continue to ascend the ladder, you're expected, particularly in the agency side, to be an expert at sales, because the expectation is that you're going to be bringing in new business, you're going to be creating organic growth, but nobody really teaches you how to do that. And if you don't have the luxury of having a great manager, and I've had a lot of great managers that you can model, you're stuck. And there really might not be a lot of resources around your agency or your corporation to help you. If you're on the agency side, there are probably more people around you that you might be able to model, and hopefully one of them is a good enough example, or someone that you can come to who could mentor you, who can answer some questions for you and provide a North Star. But if you're on the corporate side, you might be a team of one, and nobody in HR really knows who to direct you to for help. Maybe they'll put you with somebody in marketing because they think that it's two peas in a pod, and they're very different disciplines, even though there is a little bit of overlap. So I think that being able to provide people with a resource an outside resource, is a lot of people are finding very beneficial. And a lot of times that outside perspective is even more useful than an inside perspective, because I am not aware of someone's past history. Or sometimes you start at a job at the junior level, and then as you become more mature in your role and in your own self, sometimes people who have also been at the company a long time can't see you as anything other than that junior level, entry level person, but not an outsider. And also, I am not caught up in any of the politicking or any of the stress and strain and drama that might be going on, just coming at it with a fresh perspective and trying to identify problems and the problems behind the problems, so we can move forward and break through a little bit and help people get to where they're meant to be professionally and personally. So there's a lot at play there, and being able to try to ferret out and figure out what really is happening here and how you can best solve the problem. It's really important to be quick on the uptake. But that's a lot of what I've been doing lately through things like one-on-one coaching, group coaching, trainings, and I'm still doing consulting work and taking on special projects, but I've really been enjoying digging in on that side of things and doing a little bit of keynote speaking on a lot of things. Some of the things are professional skills and soft skills, and some of the things are like overcoming imposter syndrome.
Yeah, we're gonna touch on that. What I would love to know is, how do you balance being direct with being kind, especially when a team's off track, or if you're talking to someone in a different generation than you?
There's a lot that you just said there. I think that being direct and being kind it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. I think that if you have established yourself as a well-intentioned, kind, warm person, then you can get away with being direct, because people understand the place that you're coming from, and they know that they have a sense that you have they can assume that you have positive intentions, and that you are just trying to help, and that you're not trying to be cruel. But you also can't beat around the bush. I think as someone who really responds to direct language myself, sometimes I have to soften it a little bit, because you can't just communicate to people the way that you would prefer to be communicated to. But I really prefer for someone to just cut to the chase and give it to me straight. Don't dance around it, don't sugarcoat it, because I might not understand exactly what you're saying. Sometimes people, the compliment sandwich, start off with a compliment, give you the direct feedback, end with a compliment, and then you just think about the compliment in your head and you forget about the middle part.
Right.
Or someone's sugarcoating it and softening it so much, you might not understand the severity of the situation. So I think that's a really important piece, is finding a way to be truthful, honest, and be very clear. But I think that if you've established yourself as someone who has really good intentions and wants everybody to succeed and is rooting for everybody to succeed, then I think that helps a lot too. The intergenerational piece, I think, is a whole nother ball game. And I think think somehow we're under the impression that this is a very new construct, that like never before has anyone had to deal with multi-generational differences at work. And that's absolutely not true. It's absolutely not true that there's never been technical divides between generations or approaches or even like language and jargon. Everybody loves to talk so much about kids coming up in their foreign sounding slang and things like that. But that's really always been like, oh my God, please. Justin, he's doing the air juggling, 6'7". It's really, but I also think there are a lot of divides, but there's a lot of ways that someone who's not of the generation who they're trying to work with or communicate with can just like Google, what does that mean? Where does that come from? Did someone just say something nice or something insulting? I have no idea. At least you can like ChatGPT these things and figure out how to communicate a little bit better. But there's a lot going on, I think, with thoughtful companies and trying to bridge those gaps a little bit and have speakers come in and trainings to help people work together and not do something very small like text okay instead of KK or just K. Not make people feel like they're about to get fired or someone's really angry at them. And you didn't mean for that to come across.
Oh, are you a long texter? Do you use emojis? Tell me your texting style.
Try not to use emojis anymore because I think they seem a little dated. But I tend to be a long texter and I'm trying to be a more brief texter. One thing I do for sure is I will break up a long text in paragraphs and add blank lines. I cannot stand it when someone's trying to communicate a lot of different things and they'll send me like 82 texts, like one text per sentence, and my phone's blowing up. Just put it all in one block with a couple blank lines in, please. Or God forbid, just call me.
Yeah, that's, by the way, multi-generational.
Oh.
By the way, multi-generational, I will say, for some reason, calling someone seems not even in the top 10 options.
Aggressive. I saw something on social media the other day that was so funny, and I'm not going to be able to encapsulate it correctly, so I shouldn't have even brought it up, but here we are.
We can always cut it.
Something about when the telephone was invented, everybody thought it was like the best thing. Things were going to be so much better and easier to communicate than via letter, and everything was going to be so much more efficient and productive. And now somehow we've decided, let's just communicate with a digital letter. How much? Well, there are great things about it. You can send something quick. I get it. I know. I understand. There's a lot. I love texting too. But from time to time, a phone call truly is the best way to convey something. And I would love to destigmatize a phone call.
Yeah, I'm with you. You've written about burnout and you brought up imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
There's so much of that in the creative world. Not that that's the only world it exists in, but what's helped you to build a healthier rhythm, both for yourself and your clients in those areas?
I think talking about imposter syndrome really helps because you start to realize that everybody is overcoming some kind of fear or a sense of inadequacy or fear of being exposed or something. And when you realize how universal it is, it does help. And I also think just being able to identify that fear is the driver behind so many things. When I teach LinkedIn courses or I coach people who are trying to expand their brand on LinkedIn, so often people will say something similar to, I know I should spend more time on LinkedIn. I know that's where it's at right now. I know that would help me grow my business, but it's just not my style, or just not on brand for me, or I just don't
I'm
think
worried I'm going to say something wrong.
I don't want to get canceled. There's somebody else in this category who's already doing it, and so there's not really room for somebody else. I don't have time to spend on LinkedIn. I'm too busy. But really all those things are saying are, I'm afraid. And I think if you can just name it and just be honest with yourself, it's just fear. It's okay, but don't make it sound like it's something else. It's fear. Fear is behind all that. You're afraid of being exposed. You're afraid of saying something that you can't take back. You're afraid of being misinterpreted. You're afraid of looking stupid. And I get it, especially when you look at who your LinkedIn followers are before you have a strategic approach to getting an audience or followers. It could be like your parents. It could be your great uncle. It could be your next door neighbor, your college ex-boyfriend. It's a freaking nightmare out there. I totally understand why people feel this way. But I also think you need to put in perspective that the world isn't really hanging on your every word. And they're not going to see every single post that you write. You probably won't come up in most people's feeds for a really long time because you have no LinkedIn juice whatsoever because you're just getting started. In fact, you'll never have less LinkedIn juice than when you're beginning. So it's a great time to make mistakes, to test some things out, to get to know your voice a little bit, because really no one's paying attention. And you'll see that quickly because you'll have no traction, you'll have no reactions, you'll have no comments. And that, by the way, doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that no one's seeing it.
Right.
But apparently doesn't mean that all the people who you're afraid might be seeing it and looking at it all with a magnifying glass and like printing it out and posting it up for everybody to see. That's obviously not going to happen. So I think sometimes just identifying that it's fear and getting over yourself a little bit is helpful. And remembering that you're not alone. And I think that's something that has come with me as I get older. You talked a little bit about earlier on, what are the differences between the way I was when I was first starting out and the way I am now? I think it's much more comfortable for me to admit I actually don't quite know what I'm doing. I'm a little bit daunted by this, but I know I can figure it out. Whereas like when I was younger, I think that was a lot harder for me because I just wanted to make it seem, especially you're always careful about what you reveal to clients. You always want to make clients feel like, not to worry. Someone's in control here. It's okay.
I'm not going to implode. Yeah.
No, yeah. I'm not going to we're not vulnerable to failure here. Don't worry. But I do think that it's much easier for me to say, hey, I have no idea what this is. Could you take a second to explain this new technology to me or this? Because I really want to learn it, but I just don't know how. Whereas like younger me probably would have just leaned a little bit too heavily into the faking part of faking it to me. Stubbornness.
I love that. You said PR is PR and that good communication is universal. So what are some of the timeless truths that you come back to?
Oh, you have to be known to be found to be chosen, which is a Mary Beth Burkhoff-ism, my first PR boss.
Say that again.
You have to be known to be found to be chosen. I hope I'm saying that right. Mary Beth, you'll have to let me know if I've gotten that wrong because that's what I've been repeating all this time. But it's true. Like you have to put yourself out there. You have to make the effort to do that. I also think that just telling the truth, especially when it comes to something like crisis work and crisis response. The first question when a client comes to you is something like, what is the truth? Did that happen? Because sometimes I think PR gets this bad rap as being spin doctors and covering up the truth and hiding things and being slick. And really, that's not at the heart of what we do. The job is to tell the truth, make course correct when you need to, repair damage, and keep repeating the things that you've done to repair that damage and the progress that you've made so people can earn trust back again. I think being clear is also really important, not being drowned out in fancy, complex, flowery language is very important. And I think just the tenets of being the sort of person that someone wants to work with, that a reporter wants to work with, provide information for them before they have to ask for it, give timely responses, be clear, and follow up, say thank you, be kind, things like that, which aren't unique to PR, obviously. But I think that a lot of I tend to say PR is PR when people worry that if they don't hire someone who's had direct experience with their industry before, that they're somehow going to be at a disadvantage. And yes, I mean, there are certainly fields like healthcare, for example, that are extremely regulatory and that I don't know that I would want to hire someone who's only done, say, like entertainment PR, release a new drug. That's not the smartest choice. But if you've primarily done consumer packaged goods PR and you're going to be hiring someone for a travel account, say travel and hospitality account, and you think, oh, that's never going to work, I would say that you need to take a look at their attitude, take a look at their work ethic, take a look at their creativity, because any PR person worth their salt is always making new media relations friends. They sometimes worry that they're not going to have the press contacts or something like that.
Yeah.
Everyone's should be making new contacts all the time. And even those of us who have really deep relationships and great PR friendships with journalists have only gotten that way because we provide them with good stories. So a good relationship can get your text or your email or your outreach read, but no one is going to cover your story just because they're friends with you or they're professional friends with you or you've had a good track record of doing stories together. If the story's a dog, no one's going to run it. And so that's, I think, a huge universal. It's just all about the story. What story are you telling? Just because you have news to tell doesn't mean that there's going to be a reporter who's going to care at all about what you want to talk about. Your CEO's priority is of no concern to a reporter if there's no story there. So that's a huge universal, no matter what industry you're in. There has to be an angle there. There has to be news there. There has to be relevancy there. There has to be a story there. It can't just be a news item. And so I think that is something that generationally, getting back to that idea too, I think that can be sometimes harder for people who just assume that like you could just post something and then suddenly make news out of it. You really have to work hard to craft that story, find the relevancy, find the data, find the research, find a spokesperson, find a subject matter expert. And those are universals. Those are things. When I started working, my first in-house experience, I was working for a huge global, well-respected architecture firm. And I had never done any architecture and design work at all. You can get up to speed with the journalists and the writers and the jargon and things like that, but the principles are all universal. The importance of media training for everybody, the importance of timely responsiveness to writers, all of that stuff, being proactive, all the tenets are universal, and they've remained the same in all the years that I've been doing this job, even though so many other facets of work life have changed so much. Those things haven't, and I've been at this for 25 years.
Yeah. Well, you might have already answered this, but what's one myth about PR you wish would finally die?
I think that, like I said before, just the idea of PR just being spin and PR being fluff. One thing that's driving me crazy lately with PR, and I'll tell you this, I really wish would die. There are influencers who receive packages of samples from marketing teams, and they call them PR. They say, oh, I just got this box of PR. I'm going to show you guys. It's a sample of whatever, chocolates or jewelry or nail polish. And they call that PR. That is not those are samples. That's a marketing sample. That is not PR. PR is an action. That is a sample. And I wish people would just stop calling that PR, because then when you tell someone you're in PR, I think younger people assume all you do is send boxes of samples to influencers. And sometimes people will call someone a PR, like, oh, I'm going to have to call my PR and have her help out with that. Or some people might call a press release a PR. We should send out a PR on this. So there's just a lot of mislabeling in our industries now. And I really wish that would die. But the biggest bee in my bonnet at the moment is influence sample. Yeah.
I love it. I knew you'd have an answer for that. And it's interesting, as a brand agency, we have clients all the time ask us for that. And I was like, it's a whole different ballgame. I don't have contacts. I don't have all the different tools. Now, can we communicate? Yes. But do we know the craft and art of PR? No. We understand it conceptually, but that's not our specialty. And so I'm grateful that you exist in this world. So you are a top LinkedIn creator. And how do you keep your content feeling so real and I think also very grounded?
Thanks for saying that. I think it helps that I don't really have, first of all, I've never used AI to create content from scratch. I've never been a part of a engagement pod where people just you work with a small group of people and you're all going to comment on each other's posts to gin them up and help raise their profile and get them a little bit more LinkedIn juice. And I try really hard to not rely too heavily on an editorial calendar or recycling too many past posts, because once you've started contributing on LinkedIn and posting so regularly, things just come to you. And it's hard to imagine when you're first starting out and you get writer's block and you're staring at the blank screen and your fingers are on your phone or your keyboard and you're just like dying for some words or some idea to come to you. But once you start doing it more, you realize throughout the day how many things that you do that somebody else might find interesting or valuable or useful or helpful, or something that you assume or take for granted that you realize, you know what, a lot of people might not know this or might think that this is just a one-off, but this is really a universal principle. So I think being able to have an open mind and always just writing things down in my notes app that might someday become a post helps, because it's stuff that I genuinely find interesting. And I also think the important thing to keep in mind is providing value on LinkedIn, aiming to provide value. And not all of my posts are exceptionally well written or mind-blowing insights, but I am keeping an audience in mind with every post that I write and adding some kind of value to them. And sometimes that value is just like humor and what I hope is humorous, at least like relatability and humility. And I think that is adding value also. It doesn't all have to be a professional lesson or tidbit. But I think if you just try to keep in mind that you want to add value and you're not there to boost yourself up or brag about your own accomplishments, but you're there to peel back the curtain for somebody new to the field, provide a sense of community and empathy for people who are maybe just on an island doing PR on their own without any other people in their department helping them out, that you're not alone. This is frustrating for all of us, or this happens to all of us, is helpful. And so I think just trying to keep in mind the people who you are trying to reach. And it's not always a target customer. It's other people in the field. It's younger people who don't have that guidance or mentorship. And I think that's what I try to do at least. And I think that helps. I also think what I was saying before, when you first start out, you want to make it seem like you've got it all together and everything's amazing. And then the more you do it, the more you feel comfortable just being yourself and posting about your procrastination or something like that. And people find that relatable too, because it just reminds everybody we're not alone. You're not the only one who's that.
You do LinkedIn coaching, strategy, and classes. And I'm assuming, of course, that you also enjoy that. So how has that evolved and developed? And did that come from it seemed like overnight growth, and I know it's not overnight, on the platform?
That started because I started getting so many direct messages from people who wanted help with LinkedIn. And in the beginning, when I was first getting started, I had a lot of time to take those quote unquote pick your brain calls. And I was happy doing it, and I really enjoyed it. And I think that's what made me realize I wanted to try to do more of it. So it's a bit of a disconnect from the PR work that I do, because it is a completely different service offering. But I realized how much I had learned that I took for granted, that I forgot. I guess I just didn't realize everybody didn't know, or I didn't realize that this wasn't just common knowledge anymore, because it is something that I've been doing so regularly. And although the algorithm changes a lot on LinkedIn, and it does take a while, like you said, this absolutely did not happen overnight. There are a couple tenets and rules and tricks that are out there, and they work. But the biggest one is just consistency. The biggest one is just getting the reps in and showing up every day. You don't do that in the beginning. I always say that. If I had started out posting every day in the beginning, I would have quit long ago, because it gets easier the more you do it, just like exercising.
Yeah.
But if I would have started out posting every single day, I would have gotten bored and burnt out, and also disenfranchised, because it takes a while to build traction. There's a lot of, is this thing on? Even did I forget to hit send? Like nobody seemed to care about this post either. But suddenly you start to get somewhere with it, and that really helps. And I just wanted other people to be able to achieve their goals via LinkedIn, because we're in this kind of golden age where at the moment it is really the only game in town when it comes to social media business platform. And that may not always be the case. There have been a couple people competitors who have tried to come in and break through, but none of them really have. So at the moment, it's a great way for you to develop a personal brand and grow your network and increase your visibility. And I love being able to help people do that, because it's not as complicated as a lot of people think. And so much good can come of it. And it's often not what you maybe initially set out to do. You might be setting out to develop more of a presence on LinkedIn because you want to get a new job. And maybe you do get that, but you can make new connections. You can learn new things. You can get new professional friends and mentors. I've gotten so many interesting opportunities from LinkedIn, not only new business. It's a huge driver of my new business, but speaking opportunities, new services that I've offered. Like, I would have never thought that I would be teaching an online course or coaching. That wasn't something that I set out to do. And I opened up my consultancy. Like everything, you just test and learn and try new things and see what sticks and see what you enjoy. But that is something that I really enjoyed doing. And I think just being able to help people understand how simple it is, how important it is to just overcome your imposter syndrome and your fear, And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And how many great things can come of it if you really get into it and don't just look at it as a perfunctory item on your to-do list that you just automate your way through to say that you did it and then you're done and you can move on to your next thing. But if you really get into it, it can be a lot of fun.
I'm so grateful that you joined the show. So what's next for you and for Type A?
Thank you for having me. I would like to, my goal for this year was to create an online course that I could offer, for people to download as they need it on my website, not something you have to wait for a live class to be starting. And I note that it is nearing toward the end of the year. So that's something I'm also getting very interested in. I try to just follow the needs of things. And two things are bubbling up that I'd really like to try to be a part of the solve for in coaching and training. And that is mid-level managers. What we talked about before, that there's a lot of people coming up who are managers for the first time who don't have the mentorship and training and how to be a good manager, and also how to make that transition from a tactician to a strategist, from a doer to a thinker, and contributing from a strategical standpoint and being more involved in client decisions or managing an agency if you're on the client, if you're on the corporate side. And I think also sales, the same thing. Like, people are just expected to know how to sell things and how to create organic growth and attract new clients and market themselves. And they're not getting a lot of training on how to do that. And it's both an art and a science, but all those things are teachable. And I find that really energizing. So I think that might be something that I'll spend a little bit more time expanding my services into in the year ahead. But we shall see. You know how it is. One of the things that I find so interesting about this entrepreneurial experience is just that things end up materializing that you never would have predicted, and just being open to go with the flow, but be open to the flow. Be aware of new things that come in, new opportunities that come in, things that light you up a little bit, things that make you realize a whole hour's passed and I feel like we just got started.
Yeah.
And who knows what's ahead? Those are some things that I've got on my list, but let's talk in a year and see if any of those things have materialized and what new has bubbled up that we didn't even know about. Same thing for you, right? There's always a new thing. You would never.
Thanks, my friend. It's always great to talk to you. And I will, of course, make sure everyone can find you on the show notes.
Thank you.
But you're the best.
You're the best. Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me. Great to talk to you.
What I love about Sarah is that you laugh, you learn, and you don't even realize how much you're talking until the conversation ends. That's the magic. That's why this one is pure fun for me. If you want to learn more about Sarah and her work, you can find her at typeaeveryday.com. And of course, a huge thanks to Sleeping at Last for providing the soundtrack to our show. Ryan's music brings so much depth and beauty to these conversations. If you want more, visit sleepingatlast.com or search Sleeping at Last wherever you listen to music. And a special shout out to our audio engineer, Steve Wick, who loved this episode so much it made him think about who is his favorite companion to talk to.
You see, I cannot find him. It's been 20 years now. I started to lose confidence. I just work for Ficina to pay the bills. It's not a lot of money in revenge.
Well, I certainly hope you find him someday.
You ready then?
Whether I am or not, you've been more than fair.
You seem a decent fellow. I hate to kill you.
You seem a decent fellow. I hate to die.
Begin.
If this episode sparked something for you, leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Share with a friend, tag us, or post your favorite moment. It helps keep these stories going. Follow us on X at Design of Podcast and visit rule29.com to learn more about the show and the people behind it. Thanks for listening, and as always, keep noticing, stay curious, and design a life that matters.